Laurie, welcome to the podcast. I feel like this is you're right at home here. This should be your third time being on the podcast, and I'm excited to have you back.
I'm excited to be on. We're like old friends now, Tim.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I feel like this podcast is almost partly yours now because your podcast, when you've been on, have been so successful. So that's why I wanted to reach out to you and talk to you about what we're have been talking about this month. And when this podcast is published, it will actually be published New Year's Eve, December 31st. So we're talking about transformation. We're talking about how people can start the new year off right, reach all their goals in 2022, and how they can make 2022 the best year of their life. And I know that you have made some changes vocationally, and I know that you are doing some things with your physical health, and so we want to talk about those. So, but before we get started, just kind of tell the listener what you've been up to and how things are in your life right now.
Things are really, really good, and it's been a whole year of transition and transformation in many different areas. My youngest daughter left for college, so I have both of my girls out of the house, and my husband and I are empty nesters now, so that's been a whole change over the last few months. We have, I've started a new career midsummer, which was amazing as well, after leaving corporate America for 26 years of, helping run other people's companies and operations, to now running my own coaching program with Jesse Itzler, which is incredible. Very excited as we kick that off into 2022. And with all of that, I really needed to take a look at my health and my wellness. And as my, daughters are getting older and I have a little bit more time now with, like I said, being an empty nester, that I needed to kind of look at things. And I realized with COVID, I had put on some weight and kind of had some unhealthy habits get crept in, and I needed to make some changes, which I've done as well.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about that as we go through the podcast. But how is I remember when I have three children. We've been empty nesters for a while now, but how did that feel the first time you looked around and it dawned on you that you didn't have to fight over the remote control?
I was very, 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 very sad. Very sad. My house is so quiet. It's insane. It's insane. When my older daughter left, she's more of a keep to herself kind of kid, so we didn't feel it as much. I missed her, don't get me wrong, but we talk every day. But when my younger daughter left, the energy in the house just completely changed, because she just brought so much life to the house that having her not here was like, wait a minute, like you could hear everything. It's so quiet, so super quiet. And it was really a hard adjustment. I'm happy that she's away, and I'm not sad that she's not with me, but it was like, wow, this is what it's going to be like now. Like, I really need to figure out some stuff for myself. Like, I thought I was a busy person, and I realized, no, like I have a lot of time that I could be doing other things. And the first 2 weeks, I was really super sad, and my husband really walked on eggshells because he knew that I was not okay, and didn't want to do anything to kind of, disturb the apple cart there. But we settled in and just started to get into what life is going to be like now, and the reality of how all of our time was spent on our children. And we really, even though I was doing things for myself, my focus still really was my kids, and now there's that huge void. So trying to figure out how to fill it with other things.
Yeah. And, one of the things you're going to find out is holidays, especially Christmas, the breaks that your daughters get to come home, you're really going to find that you really enjoy those. And now it's going to be sad again when they have to leave in January to go back to college. But Yeah, the summers are really fun. The breaks are. I enjoyed it when our kids came home from college. And after a while though, when they'd come home, I was kind of glad when they went back. But anyway,
well, because you get used to your routine now, and they interrupted. I do have to say, was very fortunate. The last 2 weekends, they actually both wanted to come home just to have dinner with us on Sunday. So they came home the last 2 weekends, and I think that's really a testament to my relationship with them and our relationship with them. Is they miss us too. They want to spend time with us, so they're like conscious of it, and they're like, "Hey, do you care if we come home just for the day Sunday and we'll do dinner?" And we're like, "Yeah, absolutely, come on home." So I do love that, and I have seen them because they were both playing volleyball, so we went in for their matches, so we have seen them. But yeah, having them in the house, even like just yesterday when they were here, it was like, okay, like stop. Like, why is is that a cup really going to be there? And you're like, okay, just don't say anything. Just be grateful they're here. Yeah. And enjoy the time. So. Yeah.
Or they come home and they sit in your chair and they forget, okay, this is, and they just come back and they sit in your chair and you think, wait a minute. That's where I'm supposed to sit. And I think that's more of a man thing than it is. But kids are, I thoroughly enjoyed all three of mine. Now I'm enjoying all 7 of my grandchildren. We had 2 of them this weekend, and with Christmas right around the corner and decorating, we were able to enjoy them this weekend. Okay, let's talk a little bit. This month on the podcast, we have been talking about transformation, and John Samnick, who led off the podcast and talked about what it means to pivot, to change, go from one direction to the other. Shayla Gordon last week is a young lady who went from being a school teacher to building a business and a 6-figure income. And, and I've done that in my life. I went from 360 some odd pounds, lost 127, wasn't a runner, and transformed my life into running marathons and still involved in that. So when people talk about changing and transformation, I think, and I'm going to find out how you feel, how important is understanding the why behind wanting to make changes in one's life?
The why is the most important thing. And I say that because everybody wants to do things, but if you don't have a strong driving reason to do it that you invest in, then you'll try it for a little bit and you'll stop. And most people fail at things that they think they really want to do, not because they're not capable, but because they don't have the conviction behind it to really want it. And, it's one of the reasons why I know this is airing on New Year's Eve and we talk about resolutions and things we want to do next year. I do not make New Year's resolutions because I feel like that's something you're forced to just come up with and come up with ideas of what you're going to do. And there's no thought and no real feeling and desire behind it. And you have to have that. Like, your why for anything you do should be the strongest feeling you have in your body. So everything I've ever done in my life has been for my daughters in the last 20 years because they are my why for everything. Everything. That is my underlying why for every single thing I do, is how can I be a good mother to them? How can I be a good role model to them? How can I show them what they are capable of through what they see me doing and knowing there's even more? How do I break the things that my mother may have done to me that caused fear in my life? How do I make sure they don't have that? It's all this why, and it's so strong, and I live it every day. So everything I do starts with that. And then I can go from there. Then there's other reasons around it. But if you don't have a strong enough why, you're never going to follow through on anything.
Yeah. And I agree 100%. And don't you think, too, that if your why, the bigger your why, the more conviction you're going to need. I say this all the time, the bigger the obstacle, the more effort that it's going to take to get past the obstacle, whatever that is. But yeah, your why is actually your purpose. It's why you do what you do, and I think there's different questions you ask yourself as to your why. Is it going to cost too much? Is it practical? Is this something that I can sustain over a period of time? When people are looking into the new year, and tomorrow being January 1st, when this is published, what you said, New Year's resolutions are kind of, I don't know, they're kind of tricky in the fact that a lot of times people sit down on December 31st, they write them down, and there's absolutely no thought.
Right.
Can I sustain this? Is this something that's practical? So,
and sometimes it's things they know, I don't mean to cut you off, but sometimes it's things they know they need to do. But knowing you need to do it and wanting to do it and understanding why you need to do it and what it's going to take is where the planning and the thought process comes in. And resolutions don't get planned. They're just ideas. And that's where the failure can occur.
Yeah. Okay. And talking about that, if a person, and we're recording this December the 13th. It's going to be published December 31st, but on December, and John talked about this in the first podcast, and he said, why wait until December 31st or January 1st? Make your change, start making your changes now. So what would you tell the listener about the pre-planning that should go along with making the changes like you talked about? We know what we need to do. We know that we need to make these changes, but what is the pre-planning that you see needs to be done before you do it? And I'll ask you some questions about your own journey here in just a minute, but just your thoughts on the planning part of it.
Whenever you come up with something that you want to do, you need to do some research and gain knowledge around it, no matter what it is. If you're looking to lose weight, if you want to start running, if you're looking to start a podcast, a business, anything, you need to do the work to learn about it first. And then once you've learned the information, then you need to figure out how to set your plan in place. What are the steps that need to happen? I work backwards personally. And then don't set the start date 3 weeks from now, or figure out how you're going to start it right now. Like, what do I need to do today to start it? And that might be the learning portion of it. Like, I want to lose X amount, or I want to have, my podcast set up by June 30th. That's my deadline. Okay, so now I'm going to work backwards all the way to today. What do I need to start doing right this minute to be working towards my goal? And that's where, for me, it's a huge difference. And, like you mentioned, John alluded to it. It's not, okay, January 2nd or January 3rd on Monday. I mean, Mondays are the worst day of the week to start anything. Right? And everybody says, I'll do it on Monday. Why? Why? What's wrong today? What's wrong with tomorrow? What's wrong with now? Why are we waiting? And I think that's the most important thing, because there's always something you could be doing right now to start.
Yeah. The reason that I laughed when you said that is on the podcast with John, I said, and I'm notorious. People who know me know I am notorious for starting things on Monday. When I was coaching, we wouldn't put in a new offense in the middle of the week. It was always put in on Monday. It didn't matter, when I got the idea or what I did. When I start diets in the past, Monday. I don't know why I can't start on Thursday, but I'm notorious for that. We had a a saying in Weight Watchers. When I worked for Weight Watchers, it was, if you get off the program, when do you get back on the program? Do you wait till the next day? Do you wait till the start of the week? When do you get back on it? You get back on it at the next meal. You're right back on it once you quit. And so the pre-planning, we start planning on what we want to do, but then after the planning, we got to quit planning and start doing, Now, let me ask you a question. I know you're kind of in you posted on Instagram a transformation that you're kind of going through now with your physical health, and I admire you for that. What was the why behind that?
My actual health, the way I felt. I had gone for a physical. I had gotten some blood work done. My cholesterol was a little high, which it's never been. I turned 48 this year, so 50 is looming, and there's my parents are not in the best health, and I'm looking at my daughters. I want longevity in my life. I really do. I want, I don't want another 30 years. I want another 50 plus years, but I want another 50 plus great years of my life. So to do that, I need to take care of myself right now. I have to start today, not tomorrow. I don't, not when I'm 50, now. And, the scale's always been my enemy. We talked about that in my previous podcasts. I have an unhealthy relationship with my scale. I'm on it 2-3 times a day, which is not good. So I had asked my husband last year for Christmas to get me one of these fit scales that actually does your body fat percentage and muscle mass and all of that. And I had gotten on it a couple times and never really paid attention to it. And then I got on it, I think it was in April, and I was like, whoa, does this really say 38% body fat? What? Because I still looked good. My clothes fit well. I wasn't heavy. I put on a little weight, but it wasn't crazy. And it really hit home for me. And I was like, okay, you know what? I have to just do something. And so I started right then. I didn't wait. I started immediately, and I changed everything. I started really notching up my intermittent fasting. I did an 8-week program with a Build Your Life Resume member, Melissa McLeod. She works with Herbalife. I do not believe in taking supplements and shakes and all of that stuff. It's not something that I do. I mean, I have protein shakes and I do collagen, but I don't do meal replacements and things like that. But I did an 8-week program with her, and I kind of tweaked it for myself. I did have the Herbalife protein with my breakfast, but it was oatmeal and eggs and all kinds of, and grapefruit plus the protein. I didn't use any of the other stuff, but I did follow sort of the eating plan. And it really snapped because you have to shake things up. So the intermittent fasting was working for me, but I had kind of leveled out. I had plateaued. So I shook it up for 8 weeks and lost a decent amount of weight on it and started to lose the body fat. And then I really kicked it into high gear after those 8 weeks into, when June came around through the summer and through now. And I've just, I haven't been working out nearly as much as I should, other than, I plank, I do push-ups, I do squats and stuff at home, but nothing super crazy. I do my yoga still, which is amazing for you. But I really watched my eating and was able to drop my body fat percentage down into the 20s. And I'm looking to get it down to 20% or lower. I would like to be somewhere 19 to 20% because I think that's healthy for my body frame. And the weight, has stayed off, but I'm not so crazy about the number on the scale as much as the other numbers. The goal now for 2022, and I'll tell you my full-on goals, which I've already started, although I'm nursing an injury right now, is to get my body fat percentage under 20% and to increase my muscle mass as much as I can without getting super bulky because I have a small frame. But I need to build muscle because I know as I get older, that's going to be something that will definitely affect my health. My muscle mass will help me stay stronger, will help, me stay away from injury and all of the things that are super important to me to have that longevity.
Yeah. And man, there's a lot to unpack right there. One thing that you said that I really, really want people to hear is that you changed your body mass, or have changed it, and on the way to change it even more. Not so much with going out and just pounding the pavement and running a lot of miles, sweating it off. You changed your body mass by changing your diet first.
I've learned this for years now, but your body is going to change by what you eat, period. You could never work out a day in your life. If your eating is on track, you can change your whole physique. The reality is you can work out till you're blue in the face. You could go, pump iron, as they say back in our day, right? You can, you can run 15 miles a day. You can go bench press 385. You could do all of those things. But if you're still putting junk and processed foods and sugars and things in your body that it doesn't need, it's going to store it as fat. And all you're going to have is really great solid muscles underneath a very thick layer of fat.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
That is reality. And, I've said it 100 million times, you can't out-exercise a bad diet.
No, you can't. You really can't. And your body, the thing is, when you start eating properly, your body is using the food for energy, expending what it doesn't need, and then turning to your stored fat to burn as well. So that's why the diet really will change. And it's not, I hate calling them diets, but I really changed to proper nutrition. And my body said, okay, you know what? We're going to get rid of all this excess stored fat. We're going to burn it. We're going to use it for energy. And now I'm at a point where I'm terrified, but I'm changing my whole diet up now because I have to support building muscle, which is a totally different version of nutrition for burning fat.
Mm-hmm. And how, this could be an entire podcast right here just talking about nutrition, but explain what intermittent, it's easy for me to say, intermittent fasting, what that looks like. Because I say that and ask you this, it's biblical, fasting is biblical. I talk about this a lot when I talk to congregations of people in churches, and I'm gonna go scripture on you here. In Matthew, Jesus talks about three things. He talks about when we pray, when we give, and when we fast. All three of those things, when Jesus talks about those, are not assumptions that we should do those things. It's when we do those things. If you think about the three things, prayer and meditation, okay, I pray. The giving is service to other people, which we're going to talk about, I think in March, we're going to talk about service. And Jody Ames is going to be on the podcast to talk about service. She doesn't know that yet, but she is. But fasting. People are afraid, I think, of fasting. Now, here's what, and I'm going to let you talk after I get through preaching. Here's what I know about fasting, and I've done a lot of research on fasting, a lot of reading, a lot of studying about fasting. Fasting in the Bible only has to do with food. You can quit watching TV for a month and say, okay, I'm fasting from TV. No, you're taking a sabbatical from TV. Fasting has to do with food, okay? So when we fast, we are doing it for a reason, and I think it's because we become mentally stronger when we fast. There's other reasons to fast, but anyway, you talked about intermittent fasting. I'll be able to say that word before we get done. So explain what fasting is, what you're talking about.
So I'm talking about it relating to food, but I'm also talking about allowing my body to heal itself and my cells to regenerate. And as a society, we eat based on a schedule that somebody's pre-planned for us. We've been told that we're supposed to eat breakfast And then a few hours later, we're supposed to stop whatever we're doing and sit down and eat lunch. And then we're told to stop and then wait a couple hours and then stop and eat dinner again. And then you can have snack or dessert. Like, we've made meals, whereas animals and things out in the wild, they eat when they're hungry. When their body needs to be fueled, they eat. And when it doesn't, they don't. And we should be no different. So to me, I fast in that I don't like the idea of having to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, I look at my kids when they were younger and we were trying to shove cereal down their throat before they went to school, or here, have an omelet, and they weren't hungry and they didn't want to eat it. And why am I forcing them to eat? Well, you won't have any energy. Okay. But they did. They had energy because their body was using everything else that it had stored. We don't use what's stored, which turns into fat. It's why we're overweight. It's why we have so much disease. Our body doesn't give our cells to rejuvenate and regenerate because we just keep shoving more stuff in. So I fast, and everybody is different. And there's some people who do 24, 36, 48, 72-hour water fasts where they literally will drink nothing but water for that time period, and then they'll eat, which really gives your body a chance to reset everything. Other people do, a couple hours. I like, for myself, an 18-6 fast, which means for 18 hours, I am water only. And then in my 6-hour healing, that's my 18-hour healing window. And then I have my 6-hour eating window where I eat properly. And I may have 2 or 3 meals in those 6 hours. And, but it's all proper food. I make sure I'm getting the right calories. I like working out when I'm fasting so that my body is burning everything in my body and not burning the food I ate prior. If I have a super heavy workout, which I haven't had in a little while, I will come home and do a protein shake, just to rejuvenate. But I really try to work my workouts and my things around my fasting schedule. I try to not eat lunch, or my first meal of the day before 2:00. And then I'll eat from 2 to 8. And then from 8 p.m. through 2 p.m. the next day, it's pretty much water or coffee with, a little touch of cream in it or something. And I feel good. I feel like my body uses what it needs. Now, don't get me wrong. Every Saturday, I do whatever I want. I eat what I want. I eat when I want. Most of the time, I still don't eat till later in the day, but I don't eat as clean as I normally would because that's my husband and I will usually go grab something to eat. We might, grab a drink, pick up some ice cream, something like that. But I allow myself once a week, if I want to not worry about it. The rest of the week, I eat really, really super clean. If it's in single ingredient foods, if I can't grow it or kill it, I don't eat it. It's basically
that was going to be my
how it
next
goes.
question. You talked about eating clean, and my wife and I we've been back and forth for a while now. We've tried completely to go vegan. We've tried completely vegetarian. We have tried, we're not big on these, I call them fad diets or, things that aren't sustainable. And I'm like you. I don't like the word diet. The first 3 letters in the word diet are die. I don't know why. It just kind of makes me nervous. It's more of a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so what we have tried to do, I don't know if you're familiar with the blood type diet. We kind of buy into that a little bit. She has type A blood, and type A people seem to work better and under a vegetarian. She cannot have dairy, and so we have tried to remove dairy completely from our diet. It's hard to do, but we've tried really hard to do that. In the last 3 weeks, we are really low sodium, no salt. You take the process out of most foods, and the processing adds a lot of sodium to the foods.
Tremendous amount.
And so we have really tried hard to look at reading labels. We have done that a lot in the last 10, 11 years. Highly recommend it. What you just said, one ingredient foods are, off the chart, as far as nutrition goes.
This is my reality. I shop the perimeter of the grocery store.
Yep.
I don't think I ever even hit the aisles in between, unless it's something for the kids or for like cleaning supplies or something. But literally, when you think about it, I walk in, it's all fruits and vegetables, maybe some nuts. I have to be careful because I do have a daughter with a peanut allergy. It's the back wall is all the meats and protein that I need, and then there is, the dairy, whatever. But I'm a cheese fiend, so I can't cut out dairy completely. But I don't do milk. I don't do I do almond milk or oat milk or something like that. But but that's the reality. And I'm very low carb just because I know for my body that I don't metabolize carbs that well. Yep. But if it is, it's rice. It's a grain. It's oatmeal. It's not anything processed. And if I walk in the grocery store, I hit the perimeter, and I walk out, I have everything that I need to live and thrive. I'm not neglecting my body in any way. I'm not cutting stuff out. I don't need to be in the chip aisle. I don't need to, soups and all these pre-canned things, the sodium level's so high. I have Himalayan sea salt. I have regular sea salt. I will season my food with very little salt if I'm cooking, but everything that we do buy, if I buy canned tomatoes to make sauce or gravy or anything like that, it's all no sodium. It's all, no salt. I make sure of that because there is enough sodium naturally occurring in the foods we eat that we don't need to continue to add more. And that's, high blood pressure and all of these other things that happen as we get older is a direct result of all of the salt that we add to our foods. I mean, how many people salt their food before they taste it? Ever sit down at a restaurant with another couple and all of a sudden, you look and they just put, and they're salt, and you're like, you didn't even taste it yet. I went out to dinner with my girlfriend 2 weeks ago. We went to a steakhouse, and I specifically said, because I know even in these high-end steakhouses, they sear your steak in butter and salt and pepper. And I was like, pepper only, no salt, please. And when it came out, I tasted it and I was like, you could still, because what they're cooking on, other people's salty foods have been on. So I knew going in that there was going to be some salt on it. It was fine, but all the added salt that they put on it to cook it, and then you're going to salt it at the table. But people aren't thinking of it. Labels are crazy when you start to read them. But the good thing is 95% of what I eat doesn't have a label.
Yeah. And that's what that's the ultimate goal, I think, in our nutrition. One of the things that's crazy about reading labels is if you can't pronounce it, you probably don't need to eat it. And we found out something. I'm going to throw this little commercial in there. We found out something last week. My wife went to the doctor with her dad, and he has some issues that he has to really watch his sodium big time. He's in his 80s, and so the doctor told my wife, if you're going to eat out and you want to do fast food, okay, now this sounds crazy, but we did this Friday. And we don't go to McDonald's. We don't go to, Carl's Jr., places like that. We just try to stay away from them. Whataburger is big in Oklahoma, but we just stay away from them. Now, there's a place here in Oklahoma called Braum's, Braums. It's a local place, great hamburgers. They farm fresh, that sort of thing. I'm guilty. I used to go in there a lot. I don't anymore. But what I'm going to tell you is this. You can go to Wendy's and order your hamburger, which is not pre-made. They make it and fry it right there in front of you. You can order it without salt. You can order your French fries without salt.
Yep.
Okay, so we did that. Okay? We went in. Now, I don't know how much salt the bread had in it, but I'm thinking it wasn't. But we try to keep our sodium level at 1,500 a day. All right? Now, if for the listener, if you start reading your labels, remember a serving is what that sodium, the amount is in that serving, not in the package. In the serving. Okay, so we go to Wendy's, and I ordered a hamburger, and my wife ordered a hamburger and fries, no salt. Do you realize it's the first time I've actually gone into a fast food restaurant and ate a hamburger and tasted the meat?
Yeah.
Because it didn't have salt on it.
Mm-hmm.
The flavor is better. The salt is a preservative. Okay, now granted, when we eat green, whatever that is, sometimes we lightly salt that.
Yeah.
Like green beans, kale, that sort of thing. But if you're really watching your sodium level, which now I'm at a point where I used to try to really watch my calories. I would count them. Weight Watchers, I'd count my points. And I counted points for so long that's kind of ingrained in me now. When I see, ranch dressing, I know that's 10 points for a little bit amount of ranch dressing with a lot of sodium in it, a lot of MSG in it, which is a killer. All right. But now I'm just counting my sodium. That's all I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't count anything else.
I bet you feel a difference.
And it's so much better. So I feel a lot better.
One of the things I learned, Tim, years ago when I worked with a nutritionist and lost, the 60 pounds prior, I learned to season my food with other things that didn't have salt in them. So I cut up hot peppers and I use them. Like I said, I love cheese. I'm Italian. So you give me a good Parmesan, you give me, a nice grated cheese, a Romano, but that's a salty cheese on top of it. So now if I'm salting my food and then putting the cheese, so now I get the salt from my cheese. I get the salt flavoring from my cheese. I still get what I want from my cheese, but I limit the amount. I used to have spaghetti with a mound of cheese on it. Now I don't really have spaghetti, but I'll have my zucchini, let's just say, with a little sauce and a serving of cheese on it, right? And you still get the taste. And now I taste my food. It's the same thing. It's incredible. But I do know, like if we go out on a Saturday night and I have a slice of two pizza, the next day I wake up and I can feel it, like the salt in my body, like it's in my throat, my mouth. I have cotton mouth. I got to drink 6 more bottles of water than I normally do. But you can feel it. Can't get your rings
off.
Yeah, and you can absolutely feel all of that, and it does. It affects you.
Yeah. Okay, let's get off that. If you're going to start 2022, and if you want to do something for yourself, that's great advice that you gave. I mean, just cut out the sodium as much as possible. Start with that. It's hard to do. Start
with one thing, and everybody, if they try to figure it out. If you don't have a lot of sodium in your diet, then start with added sugar, or cut out one thing and see the difference. And don't try to do everything all at once. Everybody's like, I'm going to eat clean, so now everybody's going to run to the food store and only buy. No, it doesn't work. You have to gradually build these habits so that they withstand time and become what you do and not what you say you want to do.
Yep. Okay. Another question: people are going to start something new. They're ready to transform their life, and they think about starting 2022, and then all of a sudden it dawns on them: I've done this before. I've started something, and it didn't happen, and people have started diets and stopped them. They've started a running program, and I tell people all the time, you can't just go out and start a running program. I've heard people say, just put your shoes on and go start running. Well, if you don't put the right shoes on, or if you're a little bit too heavy, you may have shin splints the next morning, and most of the time people who do that, they never go back out and do it again. There's a little bit of pre-planning that goes into it, but how do we get those negative, the mindset to change from not concentrating on the past stops and starts and that sort of thing, in our head. How do you do that? How have you done that? Because, when you start something new, there's a little bit of that fear and timidity that goes into that. And you're a little bit hesitant of not knowing what's going to happen. So how do you change your mindset?
Well, we talked about it in the beginning. You have to have a clear why of why you want to do it. So what is the why? What is your purpose behind wanting to do this? That's number one. Number two, having a clear picture of what the end game is, the goal. So if you decide you want to start a business, why? Are you looking to get out of your existing profession and start something new, or you want a side hustle? Whatever the goal may be. Figure out the goal. Figure out when you would feel accomplished if you did this by. Set the goal. And then you need to put a plan together. And I say this all the time when I coach people. A goal without a plan, without executable steps, is just a dream. Period.
Yep.
So that's the reality. Anything you want to do, if it's losing weight, if it's exercising, if it's changing careers, launching a podcast, writing a book, learning a language, learning how to salsa dance, learning how to cook, whatever it may be, you have to decide why you want to do it, what's the reason behind it, are you committed to it, giving yourself a deadline, and then figuring out what are the steps you're going to need to take to get there and getting them on your calendar. It is all about intention. It is about making the time you need intentionally to do these things. So a lot of people say at the beginning of the year they're going to start exercising. The first week, gym memberships skyrocket, and you can't get it. I refuse to go to the gym the first 2 weeks of the year. I refuse because every lunatic is out there. They don't know what they're doing. They're all standing around. The people who haven't ran in 16 years around the treadmill running full speed. I'm like, okay, see you next January. 2 weeks later, the gym is empty again.
Yep. Absolutely.
No, make the plan and put the time. Okay, you know what? I'm going to work out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and whatever, Saturday or Sunday at this specific time. I'm going to put it in my calendar like it's a work meeting, and I'm going to not deviate from that schedule because I wouldn't not go to my work meeting because something else came up. The only thing that would keep me from going is if I was physically ill. Or there was an emergency. So if it's not one of those two things, then I'm going to be at the gym at 2 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or at 6 p.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever it is. Commit to the schedule just like you would your work schedule. And it's a hard thing for people. But again, the why. I don't want to have sodium. Well, why don't you want to have sodium? Why are you looking to do it? Know the reason behind it. Well, my blood pressure, I have, my father had a stroke, all of these things. Maybe that's something that's important to me. If it's like, well, I don't know, I heard it on Laurie and Tim were talking about it, so I'm going to give it a try. Well, it's not going to work. Figure out the things that are important to you. Figure out the goal and the steps around it. But the most important thing is putting it on the calendar once you have that clear why and not allowing yourself to deviate from it. I've said this before a ton of times. I set my goals. Jesse said this to me years ago at one of the retreats we were at, but I set my goals for the year. I know what they are. I know what I want to accomplish. And there's always going to be outside stuff that comes in, things that come in and try to take my attention away. And I have to make a decision. Does this outside interference serve one of the goals that I've laid out that's important to me this year? If yes, then I will address it. If no, then I have to ask myself 2 questions. Is it something important that could possibly be a goal that maybe I haven't thought of yet? And if it's a yes, then it goes on a list for me to think about at a future date. If it's a no, then it's, okay, well, why am I even giving this my time? It needs to go somewhere else. I either need to say no to it, or I need to pass it along to somebody who can address it. So outside of emergencies with my family, any outside disturbance to my plans falls in one of those categories. And I'm intentional about it. And people like to let outside stuff come in and say, oh, well, I didn't get to this because this and this happened. You're just looking for excuses. I don't want excuses. I want to crush my goals. I want growth. I want accomplishment. And I've gotten down to a pretty good system that I make that happen. I do manifest a lot of stuff. I believe it. I say it. I put it out in the universe. I trust it, and then I do the work for it to happen. And it has happened, tenfold for me. And now I'm at a point where I'm helping other people figure out how to do that for themselves as well, which is bringing me immense joy and gratitude that I'm able to help other people see that and get past their own excuses and really coming up with the underlying reasons of what they want to do and why they want to do it so that they can do it. It's not rocket science, and there's no magic behind it. Everybody has this ability within them. It just is, it's hard work, and it's hard to stay on track, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to schedule it in. You have to give it the same attention you would give other things that might not even be as important, but we've made them important. People spend 80% of their focus on their job, which is only 20% of their time in their life.
Yeah.
How about we switch that? How about you spend 80% of your focus on your life? Wouldn't that be great?
So it sounds like we need to make appointments with ourselves.
Yeah.
We put our calendar in front of us and we start scheduling all of these things. And before the day's over, we have nothing in there. When I was the superintendent of school and I started in 2011, when I went on this transformation, one of the things that I had to do on my calendar is I had a big Franklin Covey calendar notebook on my desk. And it was usually full, but from 3 to 5 every day, there was a big X in it. And my secretaries would come in and write stuff into my calendars, but they knew that nothing, unless it was just emergency or something that had to happen, they knew not to write inside the X because that was my time. Now, and so I would use that time to do my running, my workouts, whatever it was, but I made an appointment with myself. Now, and here's the thing, if we make an appointment at with the doctor, we're not going to miss it.
No.
I mean, I've said this all along. We go to church and we may be 10 minutes late, but we go to the doctor, we're going to be 15 minutes early. Now, I can argue that church is as important as the doctor, but anyway, we need to make our appointments with ourselves and keep them.
Yeah,
and I think,
without a doubt.
And tell me if this is not true. We have to be practical in making our appointments. When you had your 2 girls at home, how hard was it for you to get up in the morning with all the things that were going on, getting them ready for school? How hard was it for you to get anything done other than to get them ready for school and your husband and get breakfast and that sort of thing, and then get yourself out the door to your job? How hard would it have been if you'd have said, okay, I'm going to work out in the morning, every morning for an hour?
Well, for me, it would have never happened because I'm the worst morning person in the world. But yet, this was the thing. All of the things that needed to happen, I got up. My daughters got ready for school. There was breakfast. Lunches were made. They got off to school. I made it to work on time all the time. I did. All of these things happened because they were scheduled in. Now, if I wanted to, so this is to your point, Tim, if I wanted to work out in the morning, it would have happened if I made it. Now, I'm not a morning person. The idea of waking up an hour and a half early so I could go work out is like, no, never happening. I'd rather do it at 9 o'clock at night. But that's the point. For me, if I would have tried to do that, I would have failed miserably. Because it's not something I know that I can do. You have to know who you are. And I think that's the other issue, is the mindset around it, is knowing who you are and knowing what's going to fit in your life. So for you, that 3 to 5 was X'd out and that was it. I schedule my life before my meetings, period now. I know what I need to do for me first. Then I fill in what I need to do for my family. Then I fill in what I need to do for my job. And guess what? There's more than enough time for all of it. And I still have a ton of downtime that I actually am like, I need to do more stuff. I need to figure out more things to be more productive and more helpful. Maybe there's somewhere I can volunteer now. Like there's things that I'm looking for to fill more time, because when I do schedule it out and I look at it, I'm like, wow, I really still have some pretty good amount of time available to do other things. But when we're running on that hamster wheel and thinking we're so busy and I can't, we create these pockets of busyness, but not productivity. We're not being efficient with our time. We're not being productive with our time. I always say, give somebody a 4-day work week and you will get 120% more production out of them than if they worked 5 days. Because in that 5 days, there is so much wasted time. But when you tell them they could do the same amount of work in 4 days and still get paid the same amount of money, they're going to get all of that work done in the 4 days because they want that 5th day free. They want that time for themselves. Give your time. Give yourself the time. Fit everything in after, and I guarantee you will fit it all in. You will make it work because you want that time for yourself, which is so much more valuable, and you realize it. You realize the worth of that time that you're just giving away.
Yeah, and so many times we feel like when we're putting things on the calendar for us, all of a sudden there's this little voice in our head that says, "Oh, you're just being selfish." And I tried it when I worked for Weight Watchers again. Ladies and men alike would come in, and first thing you'd ask them is, "What are you doing for yourself? You're taking care of your family. You're taking care of this. You're taking care of that. But what are you doing for yourself?" And most of the time, they couldn't give us an answer because their mindset was, well, that's selfish.
Right.
And so I don't think it's selfish to take care of ourselves so that we can be better people of service. If you want to look at it that way.
What I've learned this year specifically with all the transformation that I've had, with all the changes that I've gone through, is there is nothing wrong with self-care and putting focus on yourself and giving yourself attention, as long as it's not at the expense of other things that are important. So I don't join expensive gyms and spend a ton of money on personal trainers and all of this stuff at the expense of my daughters being able to go to college. I don't take their tuition money and spend it on myself. That to me is a selfish act. People who will go do things at the expense of their children. My kids are going to get out of college without any debt. We're not having them take student loans. Now, I could very easily work out with an expensive personal trainer and they could take student loans and go to college. I'm not doing that. To me, that would be a selfish act. So this is my opinion of that. Doing things outside of my house and not being around for my husband or my daughters would be selfish. Having a balance of me doing things and still being here, that is totally okay and not selfish. It's putting myself first is so important, because the reality is if I don't take care of me, then I'm not here for them anyway.
Yep, that's exactly right.
I'm angry. I'm frustrated. They don't get the best version of me if I'm not the best version of myself. And the only way for me to be the best version of myself is to give myself the same attention that I give to everyone else. And so that's where I really think there's a difference. It's giving yourself attention, doing things for yourself, making yourself a priority, again, not at the expense of things that are truly important in life, but also not doing everything else at the expense of yourself, because then what version are you bringing to everyone else? And I was that version that I didn't like. I didn't like who I saw for a very long time because I gave everything to everybody else, saved nothing for myself, and didn't take care of myself. I was grossly overweight. I was unhealthy, and I was not a super nice person in reality. Like, the people I had in my life, I loved them and I took care of them, but everybody else, I was like, I can't be bothered. I have all these things to do. I'm so busy. You're not busy. You're not that important. You're really not that important. And it took me a long time to realize that. And once I came to really came to grips with it and grasped, like, wow, you're not this super important person that you're acting like. Like, get a grip, Laura. It really made me sit back and think, like, wow, like, I got to get back to being a better version of me.
Yeah. What are some non-negotiables for you every day? This is what because I really believe that there has to be certain things for us to really make changes. There has to be certain things that we just are going to do every day that are non-negotiable. We're going to get these things done, not because we have to, but because we know they're what's best for us. Do you have any of those in your life that
there's certain rules for me that just are super important. So obviously around my nutrition, I wake up and I drink my water every day, 12 to 16 glasses of water every single day, non-negotiable. My body needs it. I need it. I remind myself every morning when I open my eyes, I tell myself that I am enough. It is an intention that I have set for myself for years now, and I remind myself every single day. I come down, and when I'm working, I'm focused at work. Whatever I'm doing, I'm focused at. It's non-negotiable for me. I don't multitask. I used to say I'm like a professional multitasker. There's no such thing. You can only do one task at a time. If you think you're doing multiple tasks, you're not giving them your ultimate focus and attention. So I give whatever I am, whatever I'm doing gets my full presence and attention. I hug somebody every single day. And that's more for me than for them, but it also helps them. So even like if I'm in the food store and I see somebody I haven't saw in a while, I'm hugging them. Even if I haven't seen them in 20 years, I don't care. I'm hugging you. It's important to me to have that. I either via text or a call, I speak to my daughters every single day so they know that I'm thinking of them. And I reach out to at least one friend a day. Some people, if it's my best friend Jackie that I talk to every day, that's fine, but at least make sure I have one outside connection to a friend every single day. And that's a lot of what I do for my mindset to keep me a positive focused. It's the things I need in my life to keep me happy. And then there's one other rule that I have lived probably for the last 6 years is I refuse to watch the news. Because I do not allow any of that negative energy into my life. So when I hear people talking about, this CNN and this, that, I don't watch it. I don't look at it online. I read the sports section of the newspaper only, because anything else that is, if something major is going on, first of all, social media is going to tell me about it anyway. But I just can't invite all of that bad energy into myself because it affects me. And that's like a self-care thing for me. I shut it all out. So those are like my rules. It's my nutrition. It's my water intake. It's my connections to family and friends. And it's really watching the energy that I take in from outside.
Yeah, that's you just gave a great testament for mind, body, and soul. And doing that 365 days a year, which is the name of this podcast. So thank you for that. But I got to go back. I got to ask you, you have not watched the news in 6 years?
Yeah. When I put the TV on, and we talked about this before, but when I put the TV on at all, it's usually some show that my husband and I have like taped that we're going to watch, or like I'm binge watching something on Netflix just because I need a mindless moment, or I watch sports. Like I watch ice hockey, I watch baseball, I watch college basketball, I'll watch football. Like there's sports on it. I don't want to hear anything else. And even during elections, anything that's happening. The last news that I watched for watched was 9/11, and that was 20 years ago, almost
things have happened
21 years
since
ago.
then, Laurie.
Yeah, I know. But that was such a hard time, and seeing all of that, and then like the reality of news when we were younger and the news now, like it's not news, it's opinion. It's all opinion. I don't want to hear other people's opinions. If I want opinions, I'll listen to podcasts. If I want, I'll go read books. To me, it's not news. You're not reporting on anything, so I don't really want to hear it. I have my weather app. I go look up the weather, and like I said, I'll read the sports, but past that, there's nothing out there that interests me to know about that I'm not going to hear about from somebody else.
Now, if I remember this correctly, talking about sports, aren't you a Rutgers fan?
I went to Rutgers, yeah. So this is a tough one. So I'm a Rutgers alum.
They just beat the number one team in the nation in basketball.
They did.
They just beat Purdue.
They did beat Purdue. However, last night they got beat by Seton Hall, which is my favorite college basketball team. So that was a tough one for me because, again, big Rutgers fan. I'm an alumni, and I was super, super excited when they beat Purdue. That was amazing. But I was kind of glad they didn't bring it last night because Seton Hall, my daughter and I have been to numerous Seton Hall basketball games, and that's really where our allegiance lies when it comes to college basketball.
Okay, I just went brain dead on Seton Hall, but the basketball coach that used to be at Seton Hall back in 20 years ago was the basketball coach for the Oklahoma City Thunder for 14 games, and he got fired. What was his name?
I'm gonna look it up. Let's see. And how long ago was this?
Let's say 20 years ago.
Seton Hall.
I think it was Seton Hall. I'm pretty sure it was.
Basketball coach.
Isn't Seton Hall in the big? Isn't it the Big East?
Yes, they're in the Big East now.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about you the other day when Rutgers won because I thought I think Laurie's went to Rutgers.
Yeah, and it was so funny.
Rutgers.
My daughter actually. Let's see. There was PJ Carlissimo. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's him.
Yep.
Just came to me.
So my daughter actually posted that Rutgers beat Purdue, and one of her friends messaged her that he goes to Purdue, and he was like, "Why are you posting this? You don't even go to Rutgers." She's like, "But my mommy did." It was fun.
How did you become a Seton Hall fan?
A friend of ours actually was coaching there for a while, and we used to go to games, and it's just they're super exciting to watch. They've been so good for so many years, and they're just really, really fun to watch, and they play competitive, and Kevin Willard's a great coach, and just watching how he runs the team, we just started to go, and it was something that I did with my daughter and at the time her boyfriend, and we would go to a lot of the games, and it's only half an hour from here to hop up to the Rock and see the game, so it was it was something we did and just enjoy.
And your daughters both play volleyball in college.
Yes, they do. They do.
That's great. That's great. Okay, we're going to kind of bring this to an end. I know you're very busy with your schedule, and I just thank you so much for coming back on and relaunching this podcast. And like I say, this one will be published December 31st, so people can listen to this the day before New Year's or New Year's Day, and hopefully it'll jumpstart their year to big and better things. But just some of your closing thoughts as to if you had something that you wanted to help people with, just to help them make 2022 their best year ever, what would you tell someone?
The first question that I would ask myself, if you're looking into next year, is what would you do if you weren't afraid? If you didn't have the fear of what if it went wrong, what if I failed, how much money, this, that, the other thing, if you took all of that off the table, what would you do? Last year for me, it was to leave my job in corporate America and make a change. And that, I was scared to death of it, but it was something that I needed to happen. So make that list of what would you do if you weren't afraid? And then start to unpack, what are you afraid of? And is any of it feasible? Are you blocking yourself from the greatness that's available to you just because you're scared? I'm still scared. I started a brand new career. I'm terrified, but I love every minute of it. And I think sometimes the fear fuels you a little bit to be a little bit more aware and to try a little harder and to not be so comfortable in what we do. So think about that. Really come up with the why of what you want to do, what makes it so important to you, what's the purpose behind it. And then don't be afraid to set a goal. Don't come up with 5, 10 things. Figure the one thing you want to do, set a goal, maybe for the first quarter, not even for the year. Set a goal for the first 90 days of 2022. What do you want to do? What's really super important to you? Set the goal, work backwards, come up with small action steps that every day you could work towards this goal, and watch it unfold in front of you when you put the work in.
Laurie, that's exactly spot on. I'm sure that I couldn't have said it any better. I'm glad I did, and I'm glad she just said it because it'll mean so much more. I just appreciate you coming on. You've been on this for your third time now. I know you'll be on again because I just enjoy it. You have so much wisdom, and the way you say it is so humble. You know, there's not an arrogant bone in your body, and you're just so humble in everything that you say, and I appreciate you coming on. I know if people listen and take what you say, apply it, 2022 will be an amazing year, and that's our goal, is to help people get better. And I think you've done that. So I appreciate you coming on so much.
I appreciate you having me, Tim. I truly do. I'm so grateful that I have met you through the community and that we've had the chance to talk a few times. I feel better for it every time we do. So I appreciate you, and really am just humbled that you would have me back again. It's amazing. So thank you so much.
Well, you're a bucket list item for me. I told my wife the other day, I said, there's some people I eventually want to physically meet and give them a hug, because I just feel like that this is great. You know, we can see each other on this call and all, it's great, but there's something, you know, I need to go to the West Coast and see people. I need to go to the East Coast and see people. So one of these days that'll happen. So I appreciate it. Like I say, good luck in your new career.
Thank you.
You'll do great, I'm sure, and just keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you.